What's up guys, Kashikage here, and I am going to be talking about what did not work for me in Shang-Chi. More specifically, what I did not like about the Mandarin. So we're just going to hop right into it, let's waste no time. So I felt that the Mandarin was a huge waste of a character. That came out wrong. I felt like Marvel wasted his potential. I felt like he was wasted potential. I felt like most of the Shang-Chi movie was wasted potential, and here is why. The Mandarin is a main character, right? He is one of the villains of Iron Man. Not a side villain, the main villain. One of the main villains, okay? And we'd been building up to the Mandarin ever since their first movie in the MCU. Ever since Iron Man 1. They've been teasing the 10 rings, the Mandarin. We know what it meant. Well, people who knew the Mandarin knew what it meant. And then you get to Iron Man 3, right? And the Mandarin's a fake out. And people were, rightfully upset. We've been teased this character for this amount of time. And you finally bring him on. We're like, oh my gosh, that's Mandarin. He's a fake? Come on, man. But they fixed it. They fixed it. They did that one shot. I forgot what it was called. Something about the king. I can't remember. It was a super short video, basically showing the fake Mandarin, Trevor, the actor, who got broken out of prison by one of the members of the real 10 Rings organization. And we're all like, oh my gosh, there's going to be a real Mandarin. We're going to see him. And when he's finally there, it's in Shang-Chi. Now, let me say this before I go any further. I love the actor that portrayed the Mandarin. And it's like, you don't do that to a respectable villain. Not one that you've been teasing all this time. There was no teasing of, Ultron, really. Thanos was teased from, 2012. And he, had more to do in those two movies than the Mandarin has to do in Shang-Chi. And this is the villain that's been teased from the beginning. So, I was sitting there thinking, I'm like, how could they have fixed this? Because all his backstory is basically, exposition in the beginning of Shang-Chi. And they just kind of breezed through it, which I thought was really stupid. And I'm like, how could this movie have been better? Because Shang-Chi as a whole, I wanted it to do amazing. But it just did not live up to my expectations, and it could have. And surprisingly, I fixed it. I fixed the movie. I figured out a way to have made that movie better, to have made it a great payoff. And I did it. And let me explain how weird this is. I can make a movie better, not directly, direct a movie, but I can build up a movie better than the billion-dollar company Marvel. And you want to know how I did it? By using their old formula of taking their time and having the story build to a climax, to a payoff. So, this is what I did to fix Marvel's Shang-Chi and fix the Mandarin. So, the Mandarin has been alive for 1,000 years, right? Tell his story. Give the Mandarin his own movie. He deserves that. He's been teased, like I said, since Iron Man 1. He deserves his own movie. Give him his own movie. Matter of fact, he actually deserves 2. 1,000 years, there's a lot of stuff you can cover in 1,000 years of someone's life. So this is how I would do it. The first Mandarin movie, okay, it's him growing up. Maybe he had an abusive father, or maybe it wasn't really abusive. Maybe it was more a tough love. He wants to make sure his son is able to, defend himself, to be a powerful man. So he trains him intensely. He trains him to be deadly, trains him to be one of the best fighters. And you can go and have him grow up however you want to, do the story. If you have to make it a little bit original to fit in with the Marvel, cinematic universe that you have right now, okay, do that. He gets the 10 rings at some point of his life. And he starts building his organization, the Ten Rings organization. You know, he starts doing that. Maybe he hasn't gone full villain yet, you know. Maybe you can make this a story of how innocent young boy becomes a villain. Like how someone grows from, you know, being an idealistic, you know, little kid to growing up to be like one of the greatest mass murderers ever, you know. So he's not a full villain yet. You know, he's building his, you know, his empire. You know, he has the backstory with his father. You can show that in the beginning, why he's mean, why he's a little bit, you know, defensive, and why he doesn't really let anyone in, and why he's kind of cold and ruthless the way he is now. But he could still have like some charm to him. You know, he can still have some charm. And it's like he's been maybe riding this morally gray line where it's like, okay, he's a little bit ruthless to his enemies, but you know, in the big scheme of things, he doesn't really kill innocents, or unless they get in his way. You know, he's kind of like, you know, bending that rule. Like he's a villain, but he's not like falling, like I'm just gonna kill, you know, anyone. But at the end of the movie, while he's building his empire, you get to that point where it's like, okay, he has to make a choice. Like people are kind of, you know, seeing him as weak. You know, he either has to stay on that same kind of like gray line and risk people trying to take over his empire or basically turn on him, or he has to show that, hey, I mean business, I'm not messing around. If you get in my way, I will kill you. And you know, he starts, you know, being, you know, super ruthless, like deadly, like not caring about who gets caught in the crossfire type of villain. And obviously he should make the villainous choice, not, you know, morally speaking, but, you know, in terms of the movie, he makes the bad choice. He starts killing innocents. He starts, you know, doing that. And that's where, you know, his villain story, you know, starts. That's, you know, the origin story of why he was so feared for all these years. Okay, now the second movie, and erase Shang-Chi from your mind when you're listening to this, because what the events are, what I'm going to say, some of it you might be like, well, that wouldn't make sense because in Shang-Chi this happened. It's like, no, erase Shang-Chi. This would have been before that movie would have been made. This is the process. So basically erase that whole movie from your mind and just kind of go as if this was, you know, the canon. Okay, second movie. He starts off, it's, you know, years after, you know, he made the decision to go full bad. He's still doing it. Then at some part in the movie, maybe like, you know, midway, you basically see him spreading out his organization, and some of them go to different parts of the world, and he's like looking for power. Like he has the 10 rings, but it's not enough. So around that time, that's when he meets Ying Li. I might be saying her name wrong. I apologize if I am. But basically the Mandarin's wife, you know, that's when he meets her, Shang-Chi's mother. And that's when that whole scene happens, when he's looking for that. And he finally meets, you know, the person that can defeat him. Like she's whooping his ass, you know. And then he falls in love with her, not only for her beauty, but for her grace, and that she's not inherently a violent person. She's full of love, you know, but she will defend herself. So you start from there. That's like midway through the movie. You get to that point, and, you know, through the movie, you can kind of see, like, she's having an effect on him. Like, she's changing him. Like, he's been alive all this time, but he's never really had love, and that's what she kind of brings to him. So she changes him. So then he's like, okay, I'm going to settle down with her. We have kids. You know, I'm going to be a father. I'm going to give up the 10 rings. I might still check up on my organization. He can still check up on his organization from time to time because he's not completely ready to give it up. But for the most part, he's kind of like, you know, separated himself from that. He's just focusing on becoming a good father. So at this point, even though the Mandarin would have already been doing this, but even more so because he's becoming a father, at this point, he would be entrusting some or most of his operation to other people, people that he trusts. And he really only wants to be notified if there is something like really serious. Now, this is the really good part. So it gets to 2008. Bring back Obadiah Stane, the ironmonger, the one that ordered the hit on Tony, And Raza, the guy that he was talking to, that was the leader of that Ten Rings organization down there in the desert, bring them back for special roles and show Obadiah sending the hit out on Tony Stark and Raza going and doing it. Then you can connect it to the Mandarin, right? Because it's like, you know, you didn't want any part of this unless like it was a serious update. We have Tony Stark. Can you imagine that? Like how many people would have flipped in that movie when they saw that scene? So then it could have been like, okay, the Mandarin has to make a choice. Like, does he go down there and deal with this situation personally, or does he stay home and, you know, stay with his wife and kids? And he's going to choose to stay with his wife and kids. He's like, you know what? No, you handle this. I'm not in it anymore. I'm not that far into it. I have a family. You know, you handle this. You're one of my trusted people. I let you handle it. So at this point, you can like kind of put scenes in there that kind of match up with Iron Man 1 and show like what's going on, and then get to the part where Tony escapes, and then Obadiah, you know, tricks the guy, and he uses that thing on him to, you know, I think paralyze him or whatever. And then that's when the Mandarin comes, like after he hears about this, he comes down, and I don't know if he, at this point, like you can either have him spare the guy or kill him for failing him, but you can have the Mandarin come to the desert where they're holding Tony, and you can like just see everything, like where it started, like Iron Man 1, and it would have connected because that's the Ten Rings organization. It would have made sense for him to come down and see that. Like it all would have connected, and people would have lost their shit. So it was at this point that the Mandarin was like, okay, you know what, I made a choice. That doesn't matter. The weapons he had doesn't matter. The power doesn't matter. I have a family. He goes back to his family. He tries to, you know, put it all behind him. And I don't know how old Shang-Chi would be at this point. You know, like I said, if these movies came first, the movie, when they actually made Shang-Chi, you know, it would have been, you know, they could have tweaked it to however it was, you know, because these movies would have came first, so they could have just tweaked it. But, okay, so the story continues. He's still deciding to stick with his family. And that's when his wife gets killed. That's when his wife gets killed. And that's when he loses it, because it's like, okay, if I would have went down there and dealt with Tony Stark personally and, you know, took control of the operation, you know, I would have had my weapons. You know, I could have done it. And if I would have kept the rings on, my wife would not have died. I would have been here. I could have done something. So it's like he just lost a big part of his business. He lost the weapons and power he could have had, and he just lost his wife. That would drive him back into regret. That would make him, you know, become cold again, and then become, you know, the villainous Mandarin that was back in the first movie. Then that would connect to why he was so hard on Shang-Chi, why he, you know, was like training him the way he was, because he didn't want him to die. He didn't want to see another family member, you know, lost. And then with us spending so much time with him and his wife, it would have made sense why he didn't want to look at his daughter, because in Shang-Chi we were told that he said he didn't want to look at his daughter, but he couldn't because he reminded him of, or she reminded him of his wife. But we didn't see it. So we didn't get that emotional connection. We weren't shown anything. We were just told it. But showing us, you know, them being together for, you know, a big chunk of that movie, that would have made us feel something. You know, it would have been a connection. It would have made more sense. It would have been more believable. So that's where it like starts with like, or like in the last like, you know, 30, 20 something minutes of the movie. That's when you start the Shang-Chi story of like, okay, he went to the bar, he killed those people, he's training his son. And then at the very end, he sends his son, and then it would connect to Shang-Chi too, because you remember how in the first movie, he would have been like the Mandarin would have been, you know, trained by his father, you know, to become, you know, a deadly person, like his tough love. it would have connected to Shang-Chi, because now that's what his father is doing. His father is becoming his father. He's basically doing to him what his father did to him. It would have connected. Then at the end of the movie, you could have had the Mandarin send Shang-Chi on the mission to go kill the person that killed his mother. Then you end it right there. Like when he's going out or when he's making the choice, you just end it. And then in a post-credit scene at the end of the movie, you can have the last part of the beginning fight with Shang-Chi and that guy that used to be like one of his trainers. That used to beat him a lot with like the white face with the paint. You could have had like the ending part of that fight be the post-credit scene. And then when he's about to kill him, the Mandarin grabs him and pulls him back. And then he's like, I told, my best men that, they couldn't kill you or something like that. I was glad to know they were wrong, or I was glad to know that, they couldn't. And, it's time to come home. That's the post-credit scene. Then that sets up Shang-Chi, because you're like, okay, what happened between when he was a kid and he was sent on that mission and now? And that's when Shang-Chi starts. And then it makes sense. The story goes together. There's an emotional connection now between the Mandarin and Shang-Chi. Like, you actually feel it. There's an emotional connection between him and his wife. Like, you understand why you understand it, like, in the movie, but there's the emotional connection because you watch them in this movie become close, and, you watch the love, emanate from their relationship, and you saw how she changed him and why he would be so driven to get her back. And then it would make the Mandarin and Shang-Chi fight that much more emotional, because it's you don't know whose side to take. You understand the Mandarin side, but you also understand Shang-Chi's side and how he was kind of raised like his father, but he's choosing not to go that way, to be more like his mother. And it all just would have clicked perfectly. It would have been the perfect payoff, but Marvel didn't do it. They went from, taking their time with movies and building the lore, to going straight to DC's version and like just trying to rush something in the movie, just like shoving so much information at you. And that's where they messed up. That's why when I was watching Shang-Chi, I was like, it was a good movie, but it was wasted potential. It could have been a great movie. And they wasted the Mandarin. So much potential, so much rich backstory, and they wasted it. And that's why, or one of the reasons why, I was so upset about Shang-Chi. And that's the way I would do it if I could go back and fix the movie. And I just fixed it for Marvel, and it's a shame that I thought of something that they should have thought of, Like, they used to do that, but they didn't do it with this movie, and they should have. It's just sad, man. Like, because now it's a missed opportunity. Like, it's too late. They already brought out the movie. They already missed the opportunity. And it's such a shame. Man. But, thank you guys for watching. I'm going to end the video here. Play some Red Dead Redemption 2. Thank you for being here. And until next time, guys, I will see you in the next video. Peace.
She calls me day and night. I'm sorry, girl, you just don't make me feel